We're fancy now. Not really, but it works. What's up, man? How you been?
Pretty good. Long time no see and long time no speak, and good to
I
catch up
know.
again.
Shit, when was the last time you were on, actually?
Would have been February of 2021, I think.
Jesus. It's well over two
Yeah,
and a half years.
yeah, it's been a long time.
I think
So
that was like the last time I competed, too.
yeah, well,
But
that was before I even got my 350Z finished, and I've since had to sell it. So it's been,
no.
yeah,
Oh, that's right. You bought a house, right?
yeah. I bought a condo,
I
and
get it.
because I live just outside of Vancouver,
Uh
it
huh.
was a little over $600,000. So yeah,
Oh, you're
wonderful.
still in Canada?
Oh yeah,
Okay. For some reason, I thought you were in the states. Were you
no,
in the
see,
states at one point?
no. So this year I was the head judge for Evergreen Drift down in Monroe, Washington, but I come across the border to do the judging.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
And by the way, you
'cause
were off by a year. You were on last 2020 February.
wow, 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
right. That's right. Because it would have been 2020 because that's when I got the car.
3.5 years.
Yeah.
Actually, this episode's going to be the 5 year episode. So
Ah, that's
congratulations.
that's awesome.
Um, but go ahead. You were saying you're coming in to come
Yeah, so
judge
Evergreen's only a
people.
2-hour drive from my place.
Hmm.
So I would just get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and drive down the day of competition.
You said you're in what city again?
I'm in Pitt Meadows, BC, Canada. It's
Mm,
like 45 minutes to an hour outside of Vancouver.
okay. I don't. I'm not good with geography at
Yeah,
all.
it's totally fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say geometry just to like make the joke, but I don't want to be look that stupid. Um, but so you judged this year. Wait, outside of the shootout, because you guys just had that last month, right? Like a month ago.
Yes.
Outside of the shootout, what other things did you judge? Was it just that, or did
So
I
there
know there's
was
like a prom
so
series, right?
there was 5 rounds of grassroots,
Mm-hmm.
as well as another 5 rounds of what was called the Northwest Drift Series, which
Okay.
was sort of a replacement for Pro-Am with no FD affiliations. We didn't have to follow the FD rulebook for it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so 11 rounds of competition in total with the shootout. Well, technically 12 competitions because the shootout was two top 16s in the same day. That was a bit of a mess.
The shootout was
Yes,
what? Just well, let's circle back. Why? Why was it
because
like that?
that's what FD wanted. So FD was it said that in order to get a license this year, they weren't
Mm-hmm.
doing 1 round shootouts. They wanted people to do a series, which had to equate to a minimum of 2 rounds.
Okay.
So we did both the same day to just get it all out of the way. And
Fucking
actually,
Christ.
a driver came up from SoCal and won his license there.
Yeah, I saw that. What's his name?
Brian Wills.
Brian Wills. Yeah, we follow each other, but we're not. We've never actually spoken in person. Maybe I'll hit him up after this. Um, yeah, that's the. Is it NH Fab on his door?
I believe so.
I know he drives blue 240s. He's got like an S14, an S15, and he actually flipped his fucking S13 at AVS one time. I don't know if he did it,
Crazy.
but somebody did. It was the last fucking. It was
Oh,
at. Have you been to AVS?
is that crazy viral video where the guy just like comes flying in way too hot and rolls in the first corner,
Is it a
like
blue
into the
car?
tires?
Is it a no? No, he entered. He did like a he manjed the straight, which is fine, depending on who you ask. But something broke on his car. But in the video you see it. You see somewhere on the lower control arm broke. I don't know if it was I don't know what he was running for suspension. I don't remember. But anyways, it dug into the ground immediately, and it just flipped him over.
Ooh,
Yeah, and I think he had like
okay.
his girlfriend with him or something. I don't know if it was him. I'd have to look it up. But it was. I want to say it was.
Jeez.
I want to say it was this year, and I kind of want to say it was at Andy's Sleigh Day event. I might be wrong.
Hmm.
I might be wrong. But it was an
No,
S13
unfortunately, I haven't been
with the
to
Ford
Apple
50
Valley.
in it
Um,
from a Fox body.
I really want to go.
You really want to go where?
Sorry, I said I haven't actually been to Apple Valley. I really
Gotcha.
would like to go, but
Uh huh.
yeah, I guess the video cut out there for a sec.
Oh, it does that. You'll be right.
Yeah, it
Um,
froze.
sorry. Well, I was talking to myself then. Um, yeah, he was in an S13 when he did it. But anyways, I don't even know if it was him. Someone else could have been driving his car. No
Yeah,
idea.
so he brought two cars to Evergreen with him.
Mm-hmm.
The S14 and the I guess S14.9 or whatever it is. I don't know if it's actually an S15 or not,
Mm-hmm.
but he brought both of those cars up to Evergreen. Uh, the S15 was having issues, so he drove the S14 in comp, and he was by far the fastest car there. Like
His car is fast.
nobody was keeping up to him. It was ridiculous.
Did he win because of that?
Um, it played a part in it.
Mm-hmm.
See, personally, I didn't actually give him the win in his top eight battle in the first competition.
You didn't what?
I gave the other driver the win, and the other two judges sent it one more time.
The disrespect. Okay.
Um,
I'm just kidding.
uh,
I'm gonna tag him in this
I could
video.
grab my notebook
Uh
if
huh.
you want to hear why I said that.
We can get it
Oh.
if you remember. You remember. You don't need to get it
I
pulled up
grabbed my
for.
notebook. It's like right here.
Yeah, go for it. Actually, I judged. I don't know if you can still hear me. We'll just assume you can.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, good. I actually judged for my first time at like some grassroots comp a couple weeks ago, and I found out uh, drivers think they won when they clearly didn't, and that's been
Oh
my
yeah,
favorite
that
part.
happens all the time.
And I was like, "What?" They're like, "Why did you give him the win? He spun out behind me." I was like, "Oh, that's because you brake checked him coming into the zone." So that
Yeah,
happened a
that
few
tends to
times.
happen.
Yeah, I'm like, he was either gonna hit you or spin. I don't know what you want me to tell you, man. That didn't go well. People people don't like judges. I found that out, and I'll do it again if I could. It was actually a really fun experience. But
Okay,
so,
so
why did you
um,
why did you tell him to kick rocks?
um, I saw him straighten at the inner clip.
Okay.
The other two judges didn't. The other
Ah.
two judges couldn't determine whether it was a straighten or not, so they sent them one more time.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw it as a straighten.
That makes sense.
So yeah, it
Uh.
was really bad conditions. It was like kind of patchy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then for the second comp, it was just pouring rain, so it was way more consistent, but slower and slippery.
Oh,
But
so less
yeah, the
horsepower.
first comp was quite patchy, so some guys were struggling with that.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Um, and yeah, that was yeah. I mean, I gave the other driver a clear win on that battle, but the other judges saw it more as a one more time.
Uh huh. Can you position your phone up a little bit? Like, there we go. Now I can see. I was just looking at all of your neck and your chin. Okay.
Oh, that's weird. On my screen, I actually can't see you right now, and I see
Really?
myself perfectly center frame.
Really? That's weird.
Yeah,
I have
your screen's just black.
no idea how this works. Or at least I don't know how it works on the other end. Should work like a FaceTime call, I assume. I've never actually tested it from a phone.
Yeah, when I got back from grabbing the notebook, your screen was just black.
Interesting. Well, it's still working.
Okay.
But okay. Where how is nobody keeping up with them in the wet though? That's what I'm trying to like figure out. If it's raining, I mean, you can't
Well,
use.
the wet, he was easy. He was a lot easier to chase in the wet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, when it was that dry, patchy conditions, he was just running away from people. It was crazy.
Ah,
That car
okay.
of his is super, super fast.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he's a bad driver or anything. Actually, he's a really good driver.
No, he as soon as we gave him, because in another battle he ended up going one more time again, and we uh, basically the announcer asked the judges what he could change to improve moving forward, and we
mhm.
told him, and he announced it out, and his spotter told him, and then immediately every run after that, that mistake was fixed.
Oh, good. So he listens.
Yeah,
A lot of people
yeah.
don't.
So
I've
he
noticed.
listens well, and yeah, he's a good driver, man, and that car is crazy fast. So
That's
and
good.
he said he is planning to run Pro Spec next year. So I'm excited to see that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know FT kind of like changed their rule setup. Like you have to. So you just gave me information I didn't have, which is like the multi-round series, I guess. Um, so how did that work? If you can
Yeah.
kind of like go over that.
Well, long story short, Brian finished second in the first comp and
Hmm.
then first in the second comp,
Okay,
which made him the highest overall finisher, which gave him the license.
that makes sense. Okay, and you just
Yeah.
ran them back to back. So as soon as you guys were done with your first 16, I assume you took like some sort of break, and you guys just got right back into it.
Yeah, all we did was took the finishing order from the first competition
Hmm.
and made that the qualifying order for the second one, re-bracketed it, and went straight back into battles.
In their fin
Yeah,
for the first round.
we did, yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
I wonder if Winter Jam is going to do the same thing. Now I know you said that FD told you guys to do that, but I'm just curious if they're telling everybody to do that or what's going to happen.
I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you, because I know that Spec D did a one round shootout plus another license for their 3 round series that the shootout was a part of. So they handed out 2 licenses this year.
Got it.
So I don't know. I'm not the one that talks to uh, Ryan Sage about that kind of stuff. So I
Oh, it's Ryan
don't
that makes the
actually have the
choice.
inside track.
I don't. For some reason, I
Yes.
thought it was Kevin. Okay, that makes more
No,
sense.
no, that's a Ryan call. But
Do,
yeah, I'm not the one that talked to Ryan about it, so um,
got it.
I just show up and do the judging and
You just do what you're told.
sometimes design course layouts,
Yeah.
which was fun. I got to design a new course layout at Evergreen this year and got really positive feedback from the drivers about it. So,
Really?
which is really good to hear because I don't have a car to test it with. So it was a shot in the dark. Show up the morning of, and everybody found saw the new layout, and we're trying it for the first time. So
Did you change the layout between you guys' first comp and your second comp?
no, we ran the same identical layout for both of them. We ran the mini Irwindale layout that we run at Evergreen.
Mm-hmm. I know what you're talking about.
Um, Coincidentally, the same day as FD Irwindale, so it was kind of cool.
Yeah. Why did that just happen to be the only date you guys had available? Don't you guys normally try to avoid it being on the same day as FD? Or you guys don't
We
care?
had 2 competitions this year, I think, on the same day as FD.
Mm.
One was our shootout, and the other was FD St. Louis, I think,
Mm-hmm.
was one of the Northwest Drift Series rounds, and actually one of our, I think the second place finisher in the Northwest Drift Series championship didn't show up to that round because he was working on Taylor Hall's team at FD St. Louis.
Nice. Nice.
So he actually might have won the championship if he didn't go to that round.
Got it. You mean if he showed up to
Yeah.
the round, to
Yeah, if he had
the
shown up to
Northwest
the round.
Series? Got it.
If he didn't go to FD, that's what I
Uh,
mean. But he's actually one of the guys that won a Pro Spec license at Spec D this year, so he's going to Pro Spec next year.
oh, sweet.
With
Okay.
yeah, he's actually taking Dylan Hughes' old S13 chassis back to FD.
Shit, that thing has been passed. Wait, they fucking resurrected that car?
Yep.
Holy shit. So if anybody's listening
Yeah.
right now, yeah. Uh Brad, I can't remember
After
his last name.
Brad Davis.
Brad Davis
Brad
crashed that
Davis.
car into a fucking tire. Like a
Yeah,
was
a
it like a
tractor
tractor
tire.
tire? Yeah. Totaled the
Yeah.
car out, and then that's when he left drifting, from my
Yeah.
understanding. We still follow each other online, but
As far as I know, yes.
yeah.
But yeah, he was on entry to the 5/8 FD bank at Evergreen. He went
Mm-hmm.
into a tractor tire at 85, 90 miles an hour on the driver's door.
Yeah, that was fucking wild. Um
Yeah.
Damn. Well,
Yeah, that
glad
was
he's
actually
okay.
2020 as well.
I do remember that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
that was
was
2020 because I couldn't be there in person because the border was closed.
Canada. Sorry. That happens. Um
Yeah.
yeah, that's fucking crazy. Okay, so he bought the old chassis. What'd you say his name was?
Jace Havoc.
Jace Havoc. Okay. I'll keep an eye on the car.
No, so he has another S13 coupe that he was competing in this year, and he basically halfway through the year figured out that he couldn't make his current chassis pass the FD rulebook.
Mm-hmm.
So he went looking for another one, and just so happened that one of our buddies had the Brad Davis Dylan Hughes chassis sitting in the weeds out behind his shop,
Oh shit.
and basically told Jake to come pick it up because he wanted it off his property.
Hey man. Fucking a deal's a deal. I'll come get that shit now.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if Jace wants this to be public knowledge or not, but he got it for $100 with a title. Just the bare shell, but
Well,
full FD certified cage and everything.
well, it's public knowledge now. I'm
So,
gonna make sure that I fucking clip that, and then that's gonna be the fucking episode. Um,
oh boy,
no, I'm just kidding. Uh, I mean, not that many people listen to this shit show, so you're good. Um,
fair enough.
the numbers ain't numbering like they used to. Um, did you did you guys do anything special for the winners? Do you guys offer like any winnings, any incentives, or anything like that besides the
So
license? And then, yeah,
for the grassroots series, there's no there's trophies, but that's it. There's no money involved with grassroots.
mm-hmm.
The Northwest Drift Series had varying levels of payouts depending on which round it was and what the driver count was at each round.
Gotcha.
And the FD shootout uh, it had money payouts for the top three finishers in both comps. So
Oh,
I
okay.
don't remember exactly what the dollar amounts were, but there was prize money.
Okay. Um, what are you guys doing next year? Are
And
you
then
guys having another like pro am series? Or are you just gonna do another shootout?
that is a question I don't know the answer to.
So we'll assume it's to be.
Yes, TBD at the moment. Um, yeah, so 3 of the rounds of the Northwest Drift Series were DriftCon rounds.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
So they were higher money payout, bigger
Yep.
driver counts. Um, the first one of the year was 64, top 64.
Okay.
The other two were technically top 32s, but the one we ran on the bank, I want to say 19 drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember. The cage rules always drop the driver count way down at Evergreen. I don't fully understand why, but I mean, it does take a fair bit of power to play on the bank and
I
actually
would
be
imagine.
competitive.
Yeah, that
So,
bank is fucking long. Like,
like, you could do it in a stock 350Z, but you're gonna get gapped by a properly set up car making 400 or 500 horsepower. So,
okay, that's
a lot of the guys with lower powered cars just don't even bother coming out to the comps on the bank just because they don't feel like there's a point.
that makes sense. Uh, why show up if you've? It's not a good mindset, but it makes sense. Why show up if you
Yeah,
if you
I
know
know.
you're gonna lose? You know what I mean? I get it. Like if you
Yeah.
know that you can't keep up with another
So,
car, there's no point for you to go waste your time and
from
money.
my understanding, I don't know about a shootout next year, but from
Hmm.
my understanding, the plan is 4 rounds of the Northwest Drift Series instead of five,
Okay.
and 3 of the 4 rounds will be drift cons again.
Okay.
And I believe the second round will be in between the first and second drift cons to entice the drivers to come out and get the points so that they can actually compete in the series. Because at round 5 this year, 9 drivers showed up because 9 drivers had a math.
Got it.
Yeah. So everybody outside of the top 9 didn't show up because they didn't think there was a point.
Now, are you guys making
So
people pay for the whole season, or are you guys allowing them
no,
to buy round by round?
it's round by round.
Okay, I can see why people aren't showing up at the last round. I mean, I don't know if that makes a difference if someone's going to pay for the whole season and then not show up to the last round, or um, I guess it would be dependent on the person. But I'm curious as to like what that statistic is.
Yeah. So basically the reason for the change next year is so that the series will be started and finished with DriftCon rounds.
Hmm.
Because this year it was supposed to be, but we had to push round 4 until after the final DriftCon because of it was supposed to be the day after FD Seattle, and the logistics of it just weren't going to work.
Mm,
So they had to postpone that date, and the new date put it a week after the FD shootout.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So by the end of October, everybody's out of money anyway, right? So
Yeah, I don't know how people pay for their stuff, so I am curious to see how like certain people kind of budget themselves. Like, does somebody start with like 15 grand at the beginning of the year and kind of stop when they're done at 15 grand, like when they can't go no more, or are they living paycheck to paycheck and pretty much spending every dollar they get on drifting? I'm pretty sure there's both.
yeah, I can't answer that question because I can't even afford to own a drift car right now. So
Yeah, what's going on with that? When do you plan on getting another one, or is it just being an adult right now and you have to make a house payment, a
yeah,
mortgage?
long story short, my mortgage is really expensive, and
I bet it is.
so I'm pretty much just stuck making payments on that right now. And
I get it.
once I have enough equity in this place,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sell it and move to Alberta, which is the next province over.
Okay.
Um, because out in Alberta, I can buy a house for half of what I sell this condo for. There's no provincial sales tax. The income tax is lower. The
Nice.
fuel costs are lower. Just cost of living in general is lower there. Um, and Alberta just happens to be where the Spec D series is based out of.
Oh, okay. And then you said you were going to be
Yeah,
judging there next year, right?
I'm in talks with them about judging next year. Yes,
Got it. Yeah, I haven't
so
talked to
at
Sean
the
in a
very
while.
least, I think they want me to judge the round here at Mission Raceway, which is 20 minutes from my place.
Okay, cool. How far is
Um,
Alberta?
which is where the shootout was this year and last year for Spec D.
Mm-hmm.
Um, basically 12 hours from here is where I'll be moving to. 12-hour drive.
Okay. Yeah, I just
Yeah,
found out I have to move, so. But it ain't a 12-hour drive. It's 5 minutes away.
that's not too bad.
Moving
That's
still.
like my move out of my parents' house to here.
Oh, nice. Yeah, moving still sucks. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
a notice
because
yesterday.
I was the last time I was on the podcast. I was still living at my parents' house,
Must be
and
nice.
my wife and I weren't married yet, and I didn't own a home yet. So
Look at you, just fucking
yeah, a
full on
lot's
adult
changed.
now. Full on it. No more
Yeah,
drift
a lot's
car.
changed.
No more drift car. No. Look.
Well, technically, I still have. My team owns a G35 sedan,
Okay.
so once I actually put the time in to get that thing properly sorted out, then I'm
You can.
hoping to drive it at an event in March, kind
Okay.
of for my birthday.
Nice. Is that
Yeah,
going to be
hoping to
in
get it all
Canada
sorted by
or
then.
here where
Yeah,
Eagles
it'll be
soar?
it'll be at Mission Raceway,
Where? Where?
Mission Raceway Park.
Okay, and that's Canada, right?
Yeah, it's about 20 minutes from my place.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not that. I'm not. I barely know where fucking Washington was. I thought it was on the other side of the
So
country.
we have the BCDA, the British Columbia Drift Association, are putting on a winter grassroots competition series here at Mission Raceway,
Nice.
and they just did a 235 shootout last month,
What's a 235 shootout?
and
235 tires?
yeah, so
Okay.
235 tire, 300 treadwear rule,
Okay.
and the winner got paid out about 2,500, and I announced that actually.
Oh, sweet.
So there's a live stream up. You can watch the replay of the live stream on the BCDA YouTube channel.
So we can all see Mitchell McGarvey announce. I don't think I can do announcing. Um, I cuss so much. I wonder if I could turn it off.
So
That's what I want to know.
so
Uh huh.
last year they had the Winter Grassroots Series, and I was announcing it alone, and it was really difficult
Hmm.
because I didn't have anybody to bounce off of.
Yeah.
So for the 235 shootout, there was actually two of us announcing, and we could bounce off of each other, and it worked so much better.
Yeah. That's
So
okay. That makes a little bit more sense. Yeah. I don't. I just. I would be curious if I can not curse. Because I do curse quite a bit. I'm not saying I'm proud of it, but it is what it is, and there's
yeah,
not.
I have struggles with that at times too, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can turn it off a little bit at
uh,
least for when I'm announcing and stuff like
at
that.
least for the stuff that you're going to be doing. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just don't
I
know if I can
mean,
handle it.
there were times where I would just mute the mic and say what I wanted to say where the live stream couldn't hear me.
Yeah. That's because I say the F word is just so embedded in my fucking vocabulary that I don't know if I can drop, like, I can mentally check it out. I say it to customers. Like, I don't do it on purpose, but like at work, at my day job, it's came out a few times.
Oh,
And then I'm like,
I
fuck. And I'm
swear at
like,
work
fuck,
all the
sorry.
time too.
Yeah. I'll say
I
fuck. I'll be
I
like, oh,
swear at
fuck,
work all
sorry.
the time too.
Yeah, it's not great. Um,
But I mean, I'm a truck driver, so there's all sorts of other
yeah.
unworldly things that come out of my mouth all day. So
The fuck is kind of nice compared to compared to the things I've heard on the
yeah,
on one of the on the CB radios. So I get it. Are you like
I
a
don't
local
I don't
driver
talk
or
on
do
the
you do
radio to
cross
anybody.
country?
All I do is just no. I just do heavy equipment delivery locally.
Oh, okay. Okay. My uncle
Yeah.
is a local
So
driver, or he was like
yeah.
an
So
owner
I'm
operator
not
for
on
many
the
years.
CB or anything like that. I'm just cuss out everybody around me while I'm inside my cab with the windows rolled up.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, but you can hear it. I barely found out what a lot lizard was, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool. That's a community thing."
Yeah.
uh,
There's the occasional time where I pull footage off my dash cam and I forget what I say in those clips, and then I bring it into the office and everybody in the office starts judging me. But
that's funny.
it is
Uh,
what it is.
so with the Evergreen Drift, how did that fall in your lap with you becoming a judge? Because I know that you were kind of involved with them before. I don't. Were you driving with them? Are you friends? What's kind of the
Yeah,
situation?
so back in 2018, I went down and I drove 4 rounds of the grassroots series out of the 5.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not with a whole ton of success outside of the first one.
Okay.
But the first round, I went down in a uh, it was a Volvo 740 naturally aspirated
I remember this. Okay.
that was previously a wagon but had been cut into a pickup truck.
Sick.
It made about 70 wheel horsepower at most,
Mm-hmm.
and that that competition was my first time really driving the car, and it was my first time ever tandeming. And the way that the grassroots qualifying works at Evergreen is the judges basically watch you during practice and then uh, put you in the Jagger style bracket that Lone Star Drift uses.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody gets a battle regardless of how bad you are.
Got it.
So there was 54 drivers there that day,
Mm-hmm.
and they qualified me 53rd because I spun on every one of my uh, practice laps. And then when it came time for competition, I won my first battle.
Mm-hmm.
I won my second battle,
Mm-hmm.
won my third battle, and I ended up in a battle with a 600 horsepower turbo Mustang.
Sick.
And if I had won that battle, which I actually technically should have, I just made a major mistake that made me lose it. I went off course trying to close proximity because he just gapped the crap out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain wasn't thinking, oh, the judges know that I'm at a major power deficit. I should just run the right line and then I'll get the win. My brain was thinking, I need to get close to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up actually going one more time against him because he spun behind me because he couldn't chase me because I was so slow.
Makes
Um,
sense.
but yeah, if I had won that, I actually would have made it into the top 16 at my first comp with 54 drivers.
Nice.
So in a car that made 70 wheel horsepower
I ain't mad at you.
that I had never driven
Yeah,
before,
you.
and I'd never tandemed before.
I can't believe you've never. That's crazy. I sometimes I look back and I think about like every unwise choice I've made in this my drifting career or lack thereof, and that none of them have been good. Not a single choice I've made has been good. But
Yeah, I
here
mean,
I
the
am.
only really good choice I ever made drifting was buying that 350Z and driving it for 2 years.
How was that chassis? Because I remember you kind of told me a little bit about it. Um, how was that chassis for like a seat time car, like and stuff like that? Like, were you getting like ample seat time? Is it good because you just kind of
All the
pull?
seat time I could afford. It was that car took everything I ever threw at it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was daily driving it
Nice.
almost 80 miles a day,
Mm-hmm.
um, and drifting it
Okay.
at every opportunity that I got on the street and the track.
Uh huh.
And yeah, that car took every beating I gave it and asked for more.
I'm gonna ask you a stupid question. Um, Forgive me. Do you guys use miles per hour or kilometers up there?
Kilometers.
Okay, that's what I figured. That's what I
I
was like.
just
Why did he say
I just used to work as a surveyor, so I'm really good at conversions.
Got it. Okay, that I was just curious when you were like, I did 80. I was like, did you?
Yeah,
But okay, makes sense. Um,
yeah. It was about 40 miles each way to
yeah,
and
yeah,
from work.
super.
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere living in my line of work, commutes like that are super common. Sometimes it's worse. So, we go where the work is. So
Oh
sometimes
yeah,
we're
I mean I
driving.
had way worse commutes than that, but that was the average one because that's where the studio that I was working out of at the time was. Because I was a driver in the film industry for the last, I guess technically 8 years, but uh, with the strikes, I went in. I left and did heavy equipment delivery,
Oh, okay. Did
but
that?
but yeah, the studio that I was working out of at the time was uh, North Vancouver, so it's about 40 miles each way to
Oh,
and
you guys
from
had
my
the
place.
strikes up there too, though.
Yeah.
I don't know how Hollywood works, so didn't know Hollywood had anything
Well,
to do with Vancouver.
the writers don't. The writers are only really U.S. based, so the scripts that we film up here are from U.S. writers,
Ah, so
and
it just
then
kind of
the
shut your
actors
work down. Got it. But go ahead.
and the actors are uh, joint between Canada and the U.S.
Okay, that makes sense. It's when you learn like the inner workings of things, and it kind of opens your eyes a little bit. But I never knew that it
Yeah,
affected that our American issue is causing problems in Canada.
yeah. So the ball is starting to roll up here again, and I expect it'll be full swing again in the new year.
Does it work the same way with drifting for you guys? Because you guys are obviously you're so close, um, and then a lot of your drivers want to do FD because that is the North American largest North American series, which is accessible to
Yeah,
you
so
guys.
we don't really have a pro series on the west in Western Canada.
Hmm.
Out east in Quebec, they have DMCC, which is the Drift Maniacs Canadian Championship or something, and that's it's basically like the Canadian version of FD,
Okay.
but they only run it one or two tracks. I'm not sure. I actually don't know much about that series. I just know it's the only technically pro Canadian series. But that's where drivers like Tommy Lemaire and Josiah Fillets come from. It's from DMCC.
Got it. Okay. Actually,
And
speaking of Josiah,
Sebastian Gauthier, if you go back
Sebastian,
far enough. Gauthier.
so Yeah, I think he won like
He
2017.
ran an FD like at least 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, I remember he won like every event except for one. I want to say it was 2016 because I remember Jeff won one of the events. Maybe 2017.
Yeah,
That's when Jeff was doing Pro 2 and Pro. I do remember
Jeff
that.
Jones, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say his name like we're fucking homies or something. Not that we're not cool, but I should probably say his full name. More to their show. Have an opinion on it. Um,
So there's another Pro Series coming to the Eastern U.S. next year.
yes, and that's what I was gonna. That's my fucking train of thought went somewhere when you brought up Josiah. I did hear,
Josiah,
yeah, Josiah's starting his own series. He's doing
yeah.
it in the U.S.
As far as I know, yeah, it's going to be Northeast U.S.
Got it.
Maybe
Okay.
even down to Florida. It might be the whole East Coast. I'm not sure, but
Hmm.
he did say it's going to be uh, Eastern North
Like
America.
Northeast. Okay.
So maybe he's going to do maybe he's going to do a round in Canada. I don't know.
Gotcha. Yeah. I listened to that podcast that he did with RJ recently.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got that little piece of information. It's not really a drifting podcast, but um, I did get that piece of information out of it.
Yeah. No, I really like his podcast actually.
That's the only episode I've listened to. He doesn't have very many, and normally, as a podcast listener myself, I don't necessarily listen to every podcast episode of whatever podcast I follow. I will grab a certain episode if I like it, where, you know, but in the same respect, like people who listen to this show, some people listen to every single episode. And then, I get the occasional, like, oh, this guest interests me. I'll listen today. Or
There
it'll be your friend. It'll be
there was
like,
a there was a period of time where I picked picked and chose which episodes of yours I wanted to listen to. Now I just listen to all of them.
oh, really?
I
Nice.
spend so much time on the road, I may as well just download them on my phone and listen to them while I drive.
Nice.
So
Yeah. We're on
yeah,
the YouTube now, too. Um,
yeah,
I do.
that's because I've got YouTube Premium, so I just download the whole episode and throw it in my pocket while I drive.
Nice. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, we don't have. I don't even listen to my own podcast. Well, obviously, I don't want to hear myself talk for 2 hours or somebody else that I already had a conversation with. Occasionally, I will listen to like an old one. Like recently, I went back and listened to Rome's episode because I've heard so many like things about that episode. I'm like, let's go back and listen to it. And I was like, okay, I see why people like this because now I'm listening to that. I'm listening to what 2019, 2020. Not to speak in third person, but I'm going to 2020 Gerald's mindset of what the fuck he was going through and his thought process. Also, Rome's. So,
yeah. I actually went back and listened to the episode that I was on previously,
mm-hmm.
um, probably 6 months ago,
Uh huh.
and wow, a lot has changed since then.
Oh, really?
both in both in my attitude, my life in general, and just yeah,
Yeah,
a
same.
lot has changed. So
Yeah, same here. Now have like, I have two of RJ's cars here, so that's fun. Um, I just found out yesterday I have to move. I got hit with a 60-day notice from the landlord to move. He's like, we're remodeling the house. I was like, love that for me. He's like, but follow me. I have another house for you. So I did get lucky. It is a smaller
oh
house.
well, that's convenient.
It is, but it isn't. But he's
But
like, I'm remodeling
but
that one next year. I'm like, all right, well, as long as I
well,
know in
do you get to move
advance.
back into this one?
I don't know. We haven't got that far yet. This is all new to me. And I was like, cool. Do I need to come up with a deposit or do you just keep the one from here? What are we doing? And he's like, we're going to start everything brand new. I was like, so you're going to write me a check for the deposit so I can write you a new check for the new house deposit? They're like, yes. I was like, I love that for me. Okay. Yeah. I was like, I'm glad we're just
Yeah,
giving each
gotta
other
love
money
how
back and
things work
forth.
out like that.
Yeah. I get it. I guess they're trying to keep records of everything. So from a business, like someone who runs a business, I understand that. Like I need to have these records of
Yeah,
showing that money's coming in and out. But I'm like, we could have just made the records. I could have just gave you a fucking receipt, vice versa. But so
yeah.
that's what we got going on now. But I don't even have, um, like, I still don't have my car. That's still at RJ's shop. It's still at Big Duck Club.
Oh yeah.
So, but I have RJ's E92 right now. I have his rental comp car that he has, which is an E46, because I'm actually driving that next weekend, and I'm supposed to be driving it at the shootout for Winter Jam. Um,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, we'll see how that goes. Never driven a turbo car, so. And the last time I drove an E46, I went into the wall at Irwindale.
I was actually almost gonna be at Winter Jam um, this
Why
year,
not? Why don't you go?
not driving but spotting. Um, so a buddy of mine from up here uh, is trying his hardest to get his FD license,
Mm-hmm.
and he has more than enough money to back a full FD program and season and everything, just
Okay.
out of pocket.
Okay.
Um, he's one of those guys that did really well for himself in like crypto and NFTs.
Nice. Okay.
So yeah, he has.
He has the
Oh,
funds. Okay.
let's rattle off. Let's rattle off some of his drift cars just to give you an idea. He's got an HR 350Z seat time car, a
Okay.
370Z seat time car, a Pro Charged 370Z seat time car, an S14 that he's currently on Drift Week with.
Okay.
Um, you may have seen the orange augmented racing S14. It's on Drift Week. Um, that's an LS S14. He also bought Chase Schmidt's old Pro Spec E36.
The green one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened was a week before the Spec D shootout,
Mm-hmm.
he had a nitrous backfire that blew up the intake in the S14 and caught the car on fire inside of his shop.
What motors in the S14?
Uh, it's some sort of LS. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Well, right now he just swapped in on Drift Week a stock 2010 Camaro LS3, but I'm not
Works.
sure what the motor was before that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he a week before the Spec D shootout, he blew the engine up and caught the car on fire, and it looked like he wasn't going to be able to drive. So he just went 2 hours across the border and bought Chase Schmidt's old car so that he could drive that at Spec D.
Nice.
And that's now his new comp car. So,
I want to hear from those
and then
people
he
like
ended
who are
up second
switching.
place at the shootout.
That's such a huge change to go from like 100-inch wheelbase to 100 and what 8 inches, 9 inches, and then the cars just react.
106, 106 for an E36.
Is it 106? Okay. I was thinking
Yeah.
E46, and for some reason I thought they were the same.
Yeah, E46 is 107.8 or something like that.
I thought it was 109.
So basically 108. No,
Yeah,
that's another weird thing. I just have like technical details of cars' wheelbases in my brain at all
useless
times.
information
So
to most, but it works here.
yeah, like an E82 and a 350Z are both 104-inch wheelbase,
Mm-hmm. Wait, which one's the
and a
E82?
370Z is the E82 is the 1 series.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I've heard some not so great things about the 1 series, but which is concerning because it's the same suspension as the E90. Um, and E92, but I've
So
I've heard that it's kind of like a pain in the ass.
everything that I've heard negative about them
Mm-hmm.
revolves around the stock rear suspension, and
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that the Wisefab rear suspension fixes all the problems.
Okay, so I have that, which is fine, but I
I
also
know,
know a
I
guy
know
who
that.
just did
That's
it.
why I said that.
But I also know a guy who just well, I don't. I gotta get fucking Sam on this show. Sam and I have spoke once, and it wasn't a great conversation. I didn't like it. He was like, when I was driving the Cadillac, he asked me, he's like, "Why do you have a Cadillac?" But the way he asked me, like I smelled like shit or something, and I was like, "What the fuck does this mean?" Like it's fine. I know he may have not have done that like intentionally. It just the way he came off, the way he asked it that day. But he looked like he was irritated the
I
fact
mean,
that I was driving one. Um, but anyways, that's gone now.
to be fair,
Um,
I was kind of mean about you driving that car too.
hey, you know what? You guys should have been meaner. Um, I gotta get him on because that guy's super fucking knowledgeable. Actually, he built that. I want to say he built the engine package in the E46 I have at the house right now. But I don't know like all the ins and outs. But I do know, circling back to what I was saying, I do know that, from my understanding, the car, the 1 Series with the Wise Fab, it was just, and this is from a third person, so just take this with a grain of salt. I'll bug him and get him on. Um, that the car just didn't really float too well. So he had to like constantly be on throttle, which is kind of like it was a struggle for that car because he's so used to the E36. But he said they were like night and day difference. He does drive his E36 tremendously better than he drives. He was driving the 1 Series. So I understand that.
Yeah.
But I did hit him up, and I
So
was,
that was
yeah, go
that
ahead.
was one thing that was actually kind of drawing me to that chassis
Mm-hmm.
because I've been driving low powered cars. Basically, I mean, the most powerful drift car I've owned is my 350Z with a stock DEVQ in it,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 230 wheel horsepower. So I'm just used to being full throttle everywhere. So that's why that chassis kind of intrigued me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do understand why some people would really not like that. So I guess the
Yeah, I
only
get
way
it.
you're gonna
And
find out to drive your car
I, what's
after
weird
you finish it.
is like, okay, so I had two Cadillacs, right?
Yeah,
I had the black one, which I kind of shut down in 2021. I stopped driving it. The car was still
yeah,
drivable. I just stopped. I was doing other shit with my life, and then I put the low powered one together, the seat time car, and that car was like
yeah,
probably 220 horsepower crank. By the way, crank, and
yeah,
that thing. I was able to drive that thing better, get around a course. Excuse me, get around the course just fine. Obviously, it's a low powered car, so there's a lot of. I wasn't able to connect the whole course via drift. I would have to kind of like re-enter, so to speak, in between certain turns if the gap was too
yeah,
large. But I was able to drive that thing better with lower power, which was so much more commitment than the black car. I think just because of the lower power. Where the black car, I would try to get on throttle or something, and then I don't know what the fuck was going on with the front suspension, but it would grab the wheel or tire at some point, and then it would just loop me around every single time.
yeah. So
Um,
that's one thing that I've always wanted to do is try driving a more powerful car.
mm-hmm.
My biggest issue is I'm 6'5", 315 pounds. I don't
Oh, you're a
fit
big
in
boy.
anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all my friends that have higher powered cars with cages and stuff, I don't even fit in their passenger seats, let alone the driver's seats. So
Got it.
I've never had the opportunity to try drifting anything that was gripped up with power. I've driven some cars with power
Mm-hmm.
in the somewhere 350, 400 wheel range, but none of them were gripped up. So I really don't know what that's like from a driving standpoint. I really wish I did, but I don't.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
long, basically after I move to Alberta, the plan is after I actually have a house and a garage that I can work in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pick up an E46 330 coupe.
Okay.
Um, basically have that as a basic street car. Drive it till I blow the M54 up, probably ice drifting, and then throw a 5.3 or a 6 liter with a cam in it, and just have that as like a 300 wheel horsepower street car that I can take drifting.
Not gonna have that
And
with a 6
then,
liter. It'll be you're
what do
gonna
you
have more
mean?
power. The 6 liter with the
Oh,
cam in it.
okay.
It's gonna be
Yeah, it
more.
was 300, 350, whatever. Wherever it falls
It's like
between
400.
300 and 400 wheel.
400 minimum. Well, it depends. You just get a shitty tune, and then you can have 350 all you want.
But
Good.
but I will eventually build a second car
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be way more like competition oriented, and
Okay.
it's also going to be an E46 coupe.
When I picked this car up, the E46 Wednesday, 2 days ago, and as soon as I got in it, I was like, "Fuck, this feels really familiar." So I was like, kind of excited to drive it again, and then as soon as I got in, I was like, "Why didn't I just build another one of these?"
Yeah.
I
So
mean, everyone told me to, but
I did
whatever.
technically have two previous E46s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, two that I drifted, and technically four in total. But
Mm-hmm.
I had a really crappy 325 coupe that
Mm-hmm.
was uh, the cats were clogged, but I didn't know that they were clogged.
Okay.
I just knew that the thing had an awful intermittent misfire on
Mm-hmm.
three of the six cylinders. And I could clear the code right before taking a run, and the car would run perfectly at full throttle. And then as soon as I finished the run, the codes would kick back on. It would go back into limp mode. So
Interesting.
I limped that car through three open drift days
Mm-hmm.
before deciding it was a piece of garbage and scrapping it.
You didn't want to fix it, or you just didn't deal with it.
It was bad. It was a car that a guy had like tried to basically build as like a no suspension stance car that would just scrape flat ground.
Love that.
We lifted it onto my trailer with a forklift, and then in order to get it off, I had to install new coilovers in the car using my floor jack on my trailer because I couldn't get the car off the trailer. So,
Nice.
and then like all the quarters and the fenders were all hacked apart.
Like
Yeah,
bacon,
it was
or
just
the insides were all fucking
like
cut up.
sawzalled.
Cut. Okay, that they for clearance. I get
Yeah,
it.
like he cut them with a sawzall or something. I don't know. The thing looked awful.
Uh huh. I'm gonna.
So I actually found a I
Mhm.
actually found a 330 sedan with no papers, because it was written off by the insurance company.
Mhm.
Um, for it, I think it was originally listed for like $1,200 or something,
Mhm.
and I ended up paying 500 for it because when I got it back to my shop, I pulled it off the trailer and went to do a pull down the street with it, and it just revved to the moon and went nowhere because the clutch was that dead. Like in
Mm.
second gear, it just spun the clutch. So, um, yeah, I had made the deal for the car for $800, towed it back to my shop, and was gonna send the guy the money when I got back to my shop. And when I got back to the shop, the car didn't uh, basically drive because the clutch was so far gone.
Mhm.
So I said, "Hey man, the clutch is toast on this thing. Um, new clutch kit's $500, so I'm gonna give you 500 for the car." And he was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." So I just sent him the $500, bought the new single mass conversion clutch and flywheel for it,
Mm-hmm.
threw that in, drove that car for 3 events, and on the third event, which happened to be on my birthday, the oil pump nut backed off, and I lost oil pressure at 7,000 RPM.
Gotta love that.
Yeah.
How'd you determine that the oil nut came on, or whatever it was that came out? How did you determine that? Because sometimes I think about how like people are giving answers of their failures. What what brought you to that conclusion?
Well, after I didn't find a leak in the Vanos oil feed line, which was my first suspicion,
Mm-hmm.
then I pulled the engine out, pulled the oil pan off, and the pump nut was sitting in the bottom of the oil pan, and the drive gear sprocket was not on the pump shaft anymore.
Mm. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. It just like do you remember when I blew the clutch up in my car?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
go ahead.
correct me if I'm wrong. Are you not the reason that rule exists in FD now, where
Yeah,
everybody has
fuck
to have
all
a
of you.
scatter
I'm the
shield?
reason you guys have to have that fucking bell housing. Um, I it's you. Sometimes you have people who come and go in the series in drifting, and then sometimes you have people who make an entire rule change. And I'm glad to say I'm one of them. I'm not officially like a handful of people that are going to hear this know that. But Mike Kojima actually told
Yeah.
me, he's like, by the way, you're the reason that rule exists. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I went to Kevin immediately. Um, if you're hearing this story for the first time, a long story short, my clutch got hot. I didn't do anything about it. I didn't listen to anybody. Sorry. That's all I can say now. I should have listened to Jeff Jones when he was like, hey, pour some Coca Cola on that fucking thing and go rip. I didn't. I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that after this lap. And that lap is the one that popped. Long story short, I had a cast flywheel. It was a stock setup clutch, and I smelled clutch throughout. I've always smelled clutch in that on that setup. It was in the BMW, and then it went in the Cadillac. And essentially, what happened was the flywheel overheated. It was getting cracks everywhere, and then finally, it just disintegrated. So I clutch kicked on entry at Irwindale, and then I just heard a big ass bang. Didn't know what happened. I had no power, obviously, and then come to find out, it was everything that just tore apart. So I remember at the time I had a spec clutch, and everyone was like shitting on spec clutch because I was like, no, the clutch is fine. I was like the stock cast flywheel, that's what blew apart.
Yep.
But yeah, it took everything out. It took basically. You've seen an LS, right?
Oh yeah.
So on the sides of an LS, where there's two bolts on each side, the top and bottom, not the three up top, but the two sides, one on the
Yep.
starter. Anyways, it took those off. The clutch, I mean, the flywheel
Yeah. I
exploded,
I
and then
remember seeing the carnage pictures after that one.
I did have
Yep.
the bell housing. So when I built my first car, the E46, my dad
Yeah.
was like super anal about it for whatever fucking reason. He was like, do not use an aluminum bell housing. He's like, find a steel one, make sure it's a scatter shield. And I was like, whatever. And it just happened to be cheaper. It was like an old NASCAR one because, in case
Oh.
anybody's
Shout
wondering.
out to your dad.
Yeah, I know. In case anybody's wondering, if you're looking for safe bell housing, just look for a small block NASCAR bell housing. If you're running LS, anyways, they're like a 1/4 inch thick, and that thing is probably what saved my foot from coming off. Well, actually, they go towards the passenger
Yeah.
side.
Yeah,
So
they
if
do
you're in
go
a right
towards the
hand drive,
passenger side.
yeah. So if you're in a right hand drive car, you're fucked. But I remember there was like something else similar that weekend in a Z that happened. I want to say it was at Lone Star, and someone got their foot fucked up.
Didn't Did it go out the windshield?
If I'm not mistaken, it took someone's like pinky toe off.
Oh, jeez.
And
I remember seeing a video of one where it went out the windshield of the car. It came up through the dash and out the windshield.
I wouldn't doubt it. I remember Kevin Lawrence. He drove
Yeah,
right. He drove right hand drive cars. He was like, there was a discussion. He's like, oh, I would be so fucked because I drive a right hand drive car. He's like, and they like to go that way.
yeah,
But yeah, I am the reason for that rule, and fucking. I remember everybody was bitching about it in 2020 when the new rule book came out, and then we all almost died.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's been lots of complaints about the FD rulebooks over the years.
Um,
Ultimately,
I think it's
they're
for
about safety.
safety. They're about
Yeah,
safety, especially in pro
I
am. It's
agree.
not like I'd have to go over the rule book again, but I think even in pro am, it's mostly just safety. There aren't too
It is pretty
many.
much.
There aren't too many rules based on like subframe changes and stuff like that, which I think is kind of silly. I think you should be able to change a subframe. Like I know Mustangs, like the SN95s, they kind of have some issues
Yeah,
with clearancing. If I'm
I
not mistaken,
believe I
it's allowed now.
believe Kevin has now given them an exemption.
Yeah, and I think that would may have been. I don't know if it is. I would assume it might be from Scotty D. If you guys don't know
I
Scotty
think
D
so.
race
Yeah,
development, uh, I think so because I remember he was talking about it, and he's like, "I'm not getting an advantage. I just want my fucking shit to fit and work." So, and which
yeah,
is fair.
exactly.
I don't understand why they're so anal about it. I think we should be allowed subframe, altered subframes rather, or tubular subframes, as long as they are this within the same spec for like mounting points.
Yeah,
Yeah, uh,
basically stock geometry,
mm-hmm. But just
but
something stronger.
tubular because well, yeah, and just think about how hard to find S chassis front subframes are now.
Exactly. Especially if you're gonna have a rule where it's like we don't care what car you drive. Because I just
Yeah,
found out that a 1963 Pontiac Tempest has independent rear suspension, so I'll use that.
yeah. But what kind of independent rear suspension? Because I
As long
don't
as
think that
long as
it's
it's
what
not
you
like the
want.
fucking GTO, I'll be happy. I've never looked at it.
I'm pretty sure it's the same as early model Corvairs, which means it's full
Gaga.
swing arm this way, not
That's
trailing arm.
how the GTO is.
So
It's just a swing arm.
yeah, there's
I hate
there's
that car.
swing axles on the Corvairs, and I think the '63 Tempest is the same.
I'm curious now. Well,
Because I know for a fact that the wheel bearings are the same between the Corvair and the Tempest.
then we'll just
Because my dad
assume
has
it's
owned like 25 Corvairs,
oh, did
so
he? Nice.
yeah,
With the pancake motor.
so yep,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
So
yeah.
that it's supposedly it's a 7 hour job or something like that, or 9 hours or something to do the clutch in an early model Corvair. My dad and I did it in 4.5 hours because he's owned
I
that many of them. He just knows all the tricks.
that's how I am with the CTSs. Like when someone tells me, "Oh, I need you to do something for me," like I'm like, "Okay." I charge them the rate, the going rate, but I do have it down to like a science. Especially even
Yeah,
like doing the bushings. I know to use a hole saw. Most people will only they'll either try to press them out with a tool, but nobody. There's only one place you can get the tool, and they don't sell them. They only loan them. You have to rent it. So I started hole sawing them and then cutting them out. So it went from like I think the first one I did took me 12 hours to do a rear subframe situation, but this is all the bushings. And then by the now I have it down to like a 4 hour process. That includes pulling the fucking subframe out of the car.
yeah, that's a lot better. So before I had to take my basically forced lead from driving. I felt like my leads were pretty damn good. Like, I would confidently say that I was one of the guys that everybody wanted to chase because
Mm-hmm.
my leads were just always super consistent, always running a good bro line. Just, I had my leads dialed, but my chases needed work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was shaky in the chase. I struggled for proximity. It didn't help that I was usually driving a car with way less power than the guys I was chasing, but I mean, I made it work. The last competition that I did was at Evergreen, and it was a top 64 competition where my top 64 battle, I went up against a supercharged LS S13, I believe makes like 700 wheel. And I beat him. And then I beat Dalton Gernhardt, who is a FD licensed driver in
Uh-huh.
his LS swapped 350Z.
Okay.
So I made it into the top 16 before making a mistake on my chase and then fuel sloshing in my lead and just completely fucking that battle up. But after judging now, I definitely see a lot of ways that I can improve my chases
Mm-hmm.
moving forward. Um, and really, I think it all just is going to come down to getting that muscle memory going,
Uh-huh.
which is why I really need to just prioritize getting a sim put together so that I can get that.
Uh-huh.
Because my biggest issue so far, I have taken myself out of competition twice now by pulling the handbrake without pushing the clutch pedal in because I just don't have the muscle memory. I drove for 5 years without a handbrake, so I have no muscle memory for handbraking.
I'm gonna
So
tell you this right now. Well, at least the setup I had going on, that didn't matter. Pushing the clutch in when I did the handbrake.
well
Uh
on a low powered car like the Z, it would stall the engine and just straighten me out.
oh, I meant on the sim. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking in real life. So
Um.
yeah,
Uh. I don't think I know I've done it. 1,000% I've done it in real life. Um. But I will say the sim does give you those like simple muscle memories. Like for instance, like when I was driving the silver car, I was doing horse thief. But I remember like towards the end of the day, not I'm not one of those guys who's like really good at 8 a.m. um, but towards like the end of the day, when you finally get in your groove and stuff like that, like I remembered linking the two together, and that's when I realized that like the sim does help a lot because now when I was driving, I was doing the same things that I would do inside a Seto. Like there was more throttle, there was more, just more consistency overall. It was smoother, like just me and myself being in the seat. It wasn't so much chaos where I'm like fucking throwing my hands everywhere, doing shit like that, which I've done in the past. I think anybody who's made the correction to drive smoother in your car, whether it's just gently moving the steering wheel, not tossing it back and forth and like grabbing the handbrake and doing a whole bunch of shit. People who have like made that convert, it just kind of shows in your driving, where it looks a lot smoother too. I've been in, I've seen other, I don't want to say I've been in, I've seen other people drive where it looks like total chaos, and then you see their in-car footage, but it's also total chaos inside because they're doing a lot in there. It's not really smooth. It's not. They're just kind of like still
so,
learning those
sorry,
muscle
could you repeat
memories.
that last sentence? It was all what? It cut out right when you said that.
Which it was all what.
You told You saw the in-car footage and it was all, and then it cut out.
Chaos.
Yeah,
Chaos. So when you see somebody outside and
yeah.
it looks like they're doing a lot,
I've definitely seen some very concerning in-car footage over the years.
hmm. I would
So
say the best
that was
person to look at would be like James Dean and his in-car footage and like how smooth he is. And I would even take it a step further to say like look at his stuff in the Mustang. Maybe not towards the end of the season, but let's just say towards the beginning of the season if you can find anything available. And then look at him year 3 in the S15 at FD. So like 2019, excuse me, 2019
yeah.
FD S15. Look at his in-car footage. It's very smooth. It's almost boring to watch.
I think a big factor in that
Mm-hmm.
uh, is what Alex said when you had him on. Um,
Which
he's
Alex?
the orange Mustang drifter,
Uh huh.
the guy with the orange S550.
Yep.
Um, it it's really about the car setup and how big of issues RTR are still having with the steering in those cars.
I don't think
Whereas, like
they're.
Alex said, the S chassis is the easiest car in the world to drift.
I don't think they're having the issues.
So
I don't think they're having as big of an issue as the way he made it out to seem because they don't seem to have. From my understanding, James coming on solved that steering issue, or at least it band-aided it because it seems to be a lot better.
it helped.
Mm-hmm.
It yeah. So
I will say that those
I
cars
know
have
that
2 championships right
through
now, so they they're not having
yeah,
that
so
many issues.
mm-hmm. Through this year they were basically band-aiding the problem by running dual electric pumps.
Mm-hmm.
A buddy of mine builds standalone electric power steering pump controllers,
Mm-hmm.
and he sold one to one of the mechanics from RTR to test a single stronger electric pump for moving forward with them.
Gotcha.
So I don't know that they're necessarily going to do that, but I do know that a mechanic from RTR bought one of my buddy's controllers to do some testing with it. So, but
Uh,
he did it in a roundabout way because it was kind of funny. Um, he didn't do it himself. He got his girlfriend, who's Canadian, to buy it to not tip off my buddy that RTR was buying it. So,
I they do everything in such secret, and I
but
understand
but
why.
my buddy is like my buddy's very analytical, so like he was questioning why this girl from uh, another province in Canada was buying this, and then he dug into it and figured out that her boyfriend is a mechanic for RTR.
Mm.
So he's like, "Oh, that's why," because she was buying it, but it was being shipped to an address down in the States, which is what like got the gears turning in his head. Like, what's going on here?
I'm a
So,
little curious as to why
or or
they
no,
do it that
it was
way.
payment. Payment came from the States. It was being shipped to her. That's what it was.
Uh, yeah, I'm kind of curious as to why they kind
Yeah,
of do the things they do or the way they do them, which is um like kind of secretive. And
yeah,
I wonder if it's because so is it for advantage? Which I don't see that. I don't see them having a huge advantage over everybody, especially in such a like a particular car where they're designing everything in house. Is it for advantage or is it because everyone's gonna say something? Because you know what it's like. You post something about a car. I don't know if you do. I'm sorry. You post something that you want to do to a car or something, just a thought that you have in your head, And one thing I've fucking learned, if you want to know something, the right way to do something, post about how to do it wrong, and a whole bunch of people will tell you, "You're a fucking idiot. This is how you're supposed to do it," and then you just got free information.
Oh yeah.
But I wonder if
Yeah.
that's the reason they're like, if I tell somebody I'm gonna do this, they're gonna ridicule and have so much to say about it, and to avoid that, I will just kind of be secretive about it. Because they are always testing new things, I imagine.
I think that's part of it.
Uh huh.
I think that's
Or
part of it, and I think that also another part is they don't want to go and put this information out there knowing that everybody's going to be like, "Oh, this is what RTR is doing, so this is what I should do too." If they haven't
and
tested
that's
it themselves yet, right?
yeah, that's also understandable. Because I normally will be like, after a year or two, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we've been doing this." Give, come on, this dog has to shit.
Yeah.
I know you've heard that. Let me clip this real quick. I'm gonna let him out. Give me like 2 minutes because I gotta use the restroom myself. All
Yeah.
right. Sorry, RJ is also coming in like 20 minutes or some shit like that. I wasn't aware that he was coming today. Oh, okay. What were we
So
talking about?
while you were gone, I thought of something.
What's that?
A good talking point about judging.
Let's do it. I forgot what we were talking about to begin with. Speaking of judging,
We were talking about RTR and parts testing and stuff like that. But
oh yeah, look at us.
anyway,
Like we know what we're talking about. Just, I mean, like I know what I'm talking about. I don't know if you do. I should be making this shit up as I go. Go ahead. Judging.
yeah. So something that's really funny to me is
Mm-hmm.
that I've had multiple people come up to me throughout this year and go, a lot of people really don't fucking like you.
Good.
And I go, yeah, well, I didn't get into the judge's seat to make friends. So I got into judging to improve the level of driving at
Yeah.
Evergreen Speedway. And I think that I have done an okay job of it this year. There were
Mm-hmm.
some people that were real unhappy with me at the start of the year.
Makes sense.
And as the year went on, people started to come around and really see why I was judging as tough as I was.
Mm-hmm.
Evergreen's always had like the top drivers and then a big gap and then everybody else. So
Mm.
a lot of what I've done this year is help get everybody else closer to those top drivers.
That's
And
okay.
so there's been lots of new guys breaking into the top 16, top 8, even guys who it's their first year of competition have podium this year because of the way that I've judged throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
And so my judging style prioritizes line for the lead driver quite heavily.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see the lead driver running as close to a perfect lead as they can to really give the chase driver the best opportunity that they can to get on them. And what I prioritize in grassroots specifically is I want to see the chase driver mimicking the line and angle of the lead driver and not worrying as much about the proximity
Mm-hmm.
because the proximity will come as soon as you are comfortable mimicking that line and angle. You will progressively just get closer to the lead driver if if you're comfortable chasing their line and angle.
Okay.
So one round this year, I had a driver who was running basically near 100-point leads every run,
Mm-hmm.
but on his chases he was leaving a 2 to 3 car gap between him and the guy in front of him. But he was mimicking their line and angle perfectly, and people were getting mad because they were getting up on his door on his perfect leads and then making mistakes on their leads and wondering why he won the battle.
Mm.
I had people calling me a biased judge because the driver that was running the perfect leads was also Canadian. It was ridiculous. But he actually at the last competition he ran this year was dooring guys, and he finished second,
The
and
biased
that
judge
was
comment.
I
I
think.
got the same thing.
Oh yeah,
I only
yeah.
did one
That's
event. Did you listen to the Alex Ferreira episode? The guy who bought Z-Jack's old car? So he ran an event with some guy named Tony Crispin. I don't know him too well. Um anyways,
okay.
they both decided, I don't know why. They both decided to enter their own competition that they threw. I thought at first just to go off a little bit on a tangent, I always thought it was weird that Rathina didn't compete in the Drift League. She's like, I'm not competing in my own fucking series. And like now that I saw
You
somebody
mean
compete in their own series,
oh yeah, Drift League, yeah.
yeah, now that I've seen somebody compete in their own series that they created, I get it. I'm like, oh, that's what she meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, so
anyways,
there was a yeah, go ahead.
they both took themselves out in the event. But when me and the other judges chose the winner over Tony Crispin, Alex made that comment because he was on the loudspeaker. He had was it megaphone? Yeah, megaphone.
Oh yeah.
He was like, the judges are being biased. And I was like, oh, you must have missed the two straightens that he did in his follow, where he reinitiated. Because I know where they were watching and from where the judge's perspective were two different places. So I get it.
Yeah.
But them saying that, it kind of pissed me off a little bit. Not like infuriated me, but I was like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, why would you say that? Don't say shit like that unless you know for sure. I don't like being accused of things. Um, and I was
Yeah.
like, this motherfucker. Anyways, when he said that, it kind of pissed me off. But I was like, you're not watching it from our point of view, so I can see why you can kind of say that. But like when they were like,
Yeah.
why did you give the guy who spun behind this guy the win? Um, I was like, yeah, because he brake checked him. Like he fucking came to almost a full stop. He was afraid. I don't want to say he was afraid. He just came. He slowed down so much. It was a yellow E36. He slowed down so much to a higher horsepower car that it was kind of like, I don't think he did it on purpose. I don't think he was playing games. I think it was just his comfortability at the time when he took his lead run. Um, just the way he set himself up for that run, he slowed down way too much. So he caused the other guy to spin out, behind him, and they were just like, "Oh, why would you give me the give me um the loser give me as a loser if he spun out behind me?" And I'm like, well, you slowed down way too much for him to do anything. Either he was going to hit you or he's going to spin out, and he chose to spin out. He's like, well, then he should lose. I was like, no, 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 you kind of fucked up. You should have been on throttle 15 feet before when you finally did get on throttle. And then they kind of understood it a little bit better. I think
Yeah.
people in
I
competition
I
don't
had
understand the flow of line
yeah.
and being, and which would lead me into another tangent of like, I know when a judge tells me these are your breaking point, this is where you're allowed to slow down. This is where I expect your rear bumper to be in this pocket. I expect an inner clip for your bumper to be, coming around pretty close. And I understand those things. And what I don't understand is how people don't fucking get that. Like, if you're into drifting, especially in America, this isn't a DOS system. Everything here is line. Line means so much. You have a little bit of wiggle room
Yep.
in between the two. Um, but if you have an outer zone, that means your back bumper needs to be in it, like at minimum.
Yep.
Um, and that means from the start of the zone to the end of the zone. That doesn't mean 3/4 of the zone. And a lot of people just
Nope.
they think that they're doing well, or or especially when they have people with them that don't understand drifting, who are just kind of like
Yep.
confrontational to begin with. Like had some people up there with us. Um, we were trying to explain to some guy like why his friend lost, but he was pissed off about it. He's like, "Oh, why the fuck did he
Yeah.
lose?" And we're like, "Oh, like the zone is here. He missed it entirely." They're like, "That's bullshit." I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you understand
But
drifting, but that's just how it works."
but I had one call where on entry the chase driver hit the lead driver and broke his axle. He hit his wheel with his bash bar and broke his axle.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up giving the win in that battle to the chase driver because the lead driver was entering the corner like 10 miles an hour too slow. Like it was the bank layout at Evergreen. And he
Mm-hmm.
was trying to clutch kick into the bank like 10 miles an hour too slow.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's unchaseable.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't even gonna, even if his axle didn't break, he wasn't gonna drift the whole bank entering that slow. There's no way that car made the power that was necessary to do that. But he came up to the booth all mad because
To get that like
he
forward
lost
bite.
that battle because he
Yeah.
got hit and his axle broke. I'm like, nah, man. Like you should have entered faster. That was what it all came down to. Like that contact was your fault, not his.
And
And
I feel like people who understand the sport for the most part, who look into like the not the analytics, um to analyze the actual runs themselves and be like, this is what who understand what the judges want, because it is on paper, like you can look that up. Who understand like, hey, the judges want you to do this or that. um People who understand those things, they kind of like, they are the people who are kind of like, oh, okay, this makes sense. But then you get like people on the internet who kind of, they go pretty wild with it. They're like, this guy's a fucking asshole and he's the world's biggest piece of shit because my favorite driver didn't win. I'm like, whoa, do you
so
understand like the sport or?
so here's my controversial take on that. Ryan Lontaine
Mm-hmm.
was the only good judge in FD this year. And
I
I
don't
say that as another analytical type judge.
I don't think
I didn't
any of the
agree with
judges are
every
bad.
call he made.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the way that they have been judging the last 2 years is hurting the sport more than helping it.
Now, to kind of not necessarily rebuttal, but to kind of get some more into the nitty gritty, like, do you think Ryan is the best judge because he's the one on the mic explaining why he made the choices he made?
No. I think he's the best judge because
He's
he
Canadian.
catches things the other judges
I'm
don't.
just kidding. I'm just
No,
kidding.
has
I'm
nothing
just
to
fucking
do
with
with
you.
that.
No.
He
Okay.
catches things that the other judges just don't.
So so from your perspective, he's
I'm
super
sitting there,
analytical.
I'm
Yeah.
sitting there catching the same stuff.
Okay. So you guys are homies. I get
Like
it. No, I'm just kidding.
no,
I'm
I've never
fucking.
met the man. I just
No, but
I
I get what you're saying. Um,
so
so you're.
before I did my judging at Evergreen this year, I sat down with a notepad and paper and watched old rounds of FD
Mm-hmm.
and took notes on the battles. And I found that 95% of the calls I agreed with whatever Luntain said.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Well, I don't always necessarily disagree with him. Especially I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I would have. Um But
I'm interested to see how next year goes without him because
I
he's
am
gone
sad that
now.
he's leaving. But I get it.
I
Like,
am, yeah,
it's so weird how people can be like, I work on fire alarms, so no one's ever gonna tell me like I don't fucking like the way you work on fire alarms. Sorry, like no one's gonna look for my mom's fucking address. Like, I don't know the whole
yeah,
ins and outs of why he left social media, but from my understanding, it was like it was something related to that where like people were like looking his address up and shit like that. That's fucking crazy. Like
yeah.
FD
It's ridiculous.
FD is not that. It's not that scale. Like there's no reason for you
No,
to like stalk somebody, which is the way I see it.
and I even got
In
a small taste of that this year.
mm-hmm,
Um, there was one driver whose dad basically disagreed with every call I made all year,
mm-hmm.
and he would hound me on Facebook afterwards, telling me I was wrong,
You're a dirtbag. Got it.
and I'd be like, "Here are the reasons why I'm not wrong." And at one point, I was like, "Okay, I've given you all of this information. You don't have to agree with it, but this conversation is over." And then he kept going on for like 3 or 4 more messages, and he was like, "You only think it's over because you're wrong and you won't admit it." Blah 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 blah. And I just never responded again. I was like, "Nah, man. Like, you
Yeah.
just don't get it." And what it is this driver is coming from circle track background, where the first guy over the finish line is the winner, as long as his car passes tech afterwards. Like, it's it's pretty cut and dry. They're not used to a judged sport and they don't understand the nuances of it.
Absolutely.
And the
So it's
driver himself,
basically dad's being
his,
shitty.
the driver himself and I have actually had conversations since, and he's fully understood why I made the calls that I did after my explanations, and at times he even agreed with me. And even though his dad didn't, it was kind of ridiculous. At one point, his dad made a group chat with me and 2 other judges after one event that he disagreed with, and wouldn't leave us alone. It was
I get it.
just,
That's funny.
yeah.
Give me 1 second. I have to. I'm gonna need like 5 minutes. RJ apparently decided he
Okay,
was pulling up to the house today. I'm back. Sorry.
I
You
do
have
have a cat.
a cat. What's your cat's name?
His name is Maverick. He is a little asshole.
You know, I got a few dogs. As most of you have heard them barking on the show before.
Here he goes. He's gonna fuck with everything. Come on, dude.
Let's go.
Okay, he's off the table now. We should be
Okay.
okay.
We were talking about dads being shitty and starting group chats.
Yeah.
Sorry that took so long, by the way.
Overly I'm just gonna say overly enthusiastic drift dads.
That is my dad. So I will not have him around. And I want him to be there so bad. And I had to tell him, I'm like, you cannot fuck this up for me. I was like, I fucked this up enough for myself. I can't have you. Like, I know the shit I say is super confrontational and controversial, but my dad is the type of person who likes confrontation, who will be like, he thinks everyone is out to get him. People don't even know him. He's like, why this guy is fucking out to get me. I'm like, I don't think that's how that works. If he sees me spin out behind somebody, he'll be like on my own accord, he'll be like, you still should have won. Fuck that other guy. Why are they being assholes to you? He's one of those guys.
Hey, at least your dad's there. My I've been drifting since
Oh no,
2017,
I don't
and
invite him.
my dad has come out to one open drift.
Mm-mm. He's not allowed to go. He's
But
not there. I don't tell him when I'm driving.
yeah, but he wants to be.
Mm,
My dad, it was like pulling teeth to get him to come out to one open drift.
and that's debatable. That's a whole nother conversation. But we'll get into the dads being shitty. Well, it wasn't. So Alex's dad, he wasn't being shitty, but there was a problem with the walkie talkies. I think one of the walkie talkies was broken, but it sounded like someone was holding the button the whole fucking time. So I
Uh,
was like, "Hey, I think it's your dad." And the reason
so
I said I think it's your dad is because he's the person I can hear. I can hear him saying whatever
okay.
his whole conversation. Um, but what were you gonna say?
So with some walkie talkies, if you replace the battery while the thing is on, if you don't turn it off to replace the battery, you just pull the battery off and then put the new one on while it's still on. It'll just permanently cue itself.
Love that. Good to know. It was they were not the they were not great walkie talkies by any means. They weren't like the Baofeng ones or Motorola's. Um, they were
Yeah.
just some shitty like cheap ones. Anyways, I can hear him the whole time, so I was like, "Hey," and I said something. I was like, "Hey, I think your old man is like holding the button down, or somebody's radio is broken." But I can hear him. That's what I said. And then it got back to me like, "Why the fuck are you saying it's me that's holding the button down?" I was like, "Oh, never mind. That conversation's over." Because I was like, "No, that's not what I said. I said either a radio was broken or he's holding the button down." But he heard I was telling him he's holding the button down. Um, I thought that was funny. Uh,
Yeah, I love it when people put words in my mouth that I didn't say.
I don't know if they put words in my mouth. They just chose the part that they didn't like and they ran with it. If that makes sense. Because I did say your dad's the one holding the button down. They just left out the or part. It's like a game of telephone. Like I know what I told one person. I don't know
Yeah.
what he told the next person.
Yeah. Well, I had somebody say after a drivers meeting this year that I had said proximity doesn't matter. And those words did not come out of my mouth in that order at all. But that was their takeaway from it, and they posted online saying that I said that.
What did you say that would have made them say such?
Well, like I said, the way that I judged grassroots specifically was I put more weight on the chase driver's line mimic and angle mimic than I did on their proximity.
Got it.
So because I was weighing line mimic and angle mimic more than proximity,
Mm-hmm.
these guys decided that that meant that proximity didn't matter.
Got it.
Like, no, if you're rubbing your tire on the door of the guy in front of you, but you're doing it on his same line at the same angle he's throwing, you're gonna win the damn battle. Like,
Yeah, I
as
get
long
that.
as you don't royally fuck up your lead.
I remember
So
when James Dean first came to FD, he wasn't doing the angle mimicking, but he was on their door. Like on their
yeah,
fucking door, like
we have a
touching.
driver. We have a driver here in the Pacific Northwest that drives like that. He's right on the door of the guy in front of him, but at half their angle,
Yeah.
and it drives me nuts. And I tell him it drives me nuts. And sometimes it works out for him, and sometimes it doesn't.
I think I think James and fucking Piotr, I shouldn't say it that way. Piotr. James and Piotr, I think they kind of like their style of driving and how like close they were able to get, um, kind of made everybody in America kind of jaded towards drifting and like the competition aspect, because the way they would chase each other was they would mimic each other's line and angle, but they when they were chasing the American or just any other driver, not necessarily Americans, they would
Yeah.
do that thing where it's like one has more angle, the lead driver, and then the other one's just kind of like pushing the other guy around. I would say James more than
Hmm.
Peter. I think Peter did a lot better mimicking on angle, but I can see how the wow
Yeah.
factor when they first came, that was just so fucking amazing to see. But now that they did kind of taint American drifting, because now we expect more than what they were able to do the first time they came here, even in fucking pro am. Because
Yeah.
the if FD does something at Long Beach, we expect that the next weekend at a prom event. Not expected, but you know,
I, yeah. I wouldn't go that far, but
I'm
I
over
know what you
exaggerating for
mean.
sure. Yeah, but it's not too far
Um,
after that people are doing that. It's not too long after, rather.
there have been some spectacular battles this that I saw this year at both, well, really at all three Evergreen events, at Spec D events, and even at my local track here in Mission Raceway BCDA events.
Mm-hmm.
The level of driving, even at a grassroots level, is just insane these days.
Yeah, it's. I think seeing them come over and do the FD thing, and which obviously trickles down to everything. I know that a lot of people who are like, I don't like FD, I don't watch it. There's so much of that on Instagram, other podcasts, even. Not to shit on them,
Yeah,
but all that stuff does trickle down. Like every shit rolls downhill. Um, Not to say it's shit, but it does roll downhill. It does push people to mimic what they see on the pro level. Whether you like FD or not, that shit gets pushed. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, we've been doing that in pro am or at grassroots events forever. You're also not doing FD speeds. Like you're doing this at a go kart track. You know what I mean? You're not doing this 90 miles an
yeah.
hour sideways. Um, Maybe a handful of you are, like, be realistic, but it's not the majority right now. It's the majority. People are getting so fucking good at driving, especially because of sim. um, they're getting so good
Yeah,
at it that they're just able to get on somebody's door out of fucking nowhere that they've never driven with before, which is, also great. I think it just kind of
I
depends.
think that I think that if I can get a good sim rig setup and get used to the sim,
Hmm.
that's the only thing that's going to make it so that I'll be able to step back into a car and not get left in the dust by all the guys I used to drive with,
Yeah, and you might get
because
left in the dust the
everybody's
first
driving
day.
level, yeah, but everybody's driving level stepped up so much even since I sold my car last year. Like, it's crazy how much better everybody's gotten even just in this last year.
Hmm.
So,
I don't disagree with that. I think just seeing the level of driving I saw at the grassroots competition that I was able to judge, not from all the drivers, obviously. I will say that a pro am driver won. Um, that's just because the way the course was set up, it was set up for his power level and his driving skill. But there were other people there who were doing really well for what they had. They were actually doing so fucking well for what they had, but they may have just made a mistake that took them out. But watching them in practice, phenomenal. But they made the mistake in comp. Um,
now for that grassroots comp that you judged, was there any sort of tire rule or anything to try to level the playing field?
I don't. think so. Don't quote me on that. I don't believe so. But I know the guy that won was on Valino's. No, no, Vitors. But
So
there was plenty of people on Vitors.
our local series here at Mission Raceway and
Mm-hmm.
also the grassroots series at Evergreen
Mm-hmm.
both have a 235 rule.
Okay.
So you can bring as big a power car as you want, but the biggest tire you can run is a 235.
Is there a sidewall rule?
No.
Like for me, for instance, like I have a 10.5 inch wheel. I've ran 235s because I didn't change wheels when I ran the silver car. I ran 235 45s on the rear to get them to stretch properly. The 235
Yeah.
40 stretching on the 10.5 wheel, it just gave me the fucking heebie jeebies and I didn't want to deal with it. So I did with
Yeah.
the 235 45 series and it was fine. So now I'm curious because now I pretty much have full access to that E46 I told you about. I told you
Yeah.
RJ was here. We just talked right now. That's why it took a little longer. I pretty much I can use the car as much as I want, but if I want to go in certain series, there's a new series that's going to start next year with Flavor Express, but their rule is the 235 rule as well. But they also have like a hey, you can't have more than 600 horsepower. So now I got to be like, what
Yeah.
dyno?
See that? Yeah. Well, that was the thing is horsepower is such a hard thing to put a cap on
It's very hard to gauge
unless
too.
you, yeah. And like if you had one of those portable dyno trailers
Mm.
and you got everybody to dyno their car at tech in the morning, you still wouldn't be able to say this guy's definitively running this much power because he might have a hidden nitrous system on the car. He might turn his boost up after he gets off the dyno. Like the guys are going to do what they're going to do regardless. That's why you have to pretty much use the tire as the limiting factor for it because you can only get so much grip out of a chassis and a tire
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the power level the car makes.
Exactly. Um,
And I've seen guys that have run so much power on a 235 that they were slower than guys with half their power because they were just baking the tires off and not going anywhere.
Running like too
They
much
couldn't
grip
put enough grip in for their power.
and using too much of the power. Yeah, not really pedaling it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think there's that, and I think people get used to driving their car a certain way where it's like I'm gonna get my car has 500 horsepower, so I'm gonna get used to driving it at 500 horsepower on a 265. Um,
yeah,
but there's so many like different setups that you can kind of like utilize where you can like, oh, if I do end up in the 235 rule, I can set this car up to run super well on a 235 with a lot more throttle modulation, lower in my RPM range, maybe with a different gear ratio, so you're not as high in your RPM range. Just depending on how you're making it work.
yeah,
There are so many different variables when it comes to that, and a lot of people don't understand setup, and I think is the number one thing that um, a sim is going to help you out with, because you can change those variables where when you get into a sim you can be like, oh, I need the car to have a 235 tire, 400 tread wear, and I need it to be on a shitty rear diff situation. But you can also do that
yeah,
same car, and then you can be like, okay, now I have 410s, I have 265, I have a 200 tread wear tire, and I'm running 12 psi. And then now you can really lay
yeah.
into it. Um, where another setup is like you're mostly just pedaling it around the track. I think that's where sim can help so many people. I just kind of hope they invest that money. I don't have a sim anymore. I got rid of it. Um,
So, so setup was kind of my thing. I was always the guy that couldn't afford to make more power, so I made up for it in my setup.
mm-hmm.
So my 350Z, I did a whole bunch of trick things to the suspension, even though that car was 2 inches off of the ground at the frame rail. Like it was low.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was tucking
You like to
uh
party. I
I
get it.
was tucking 18, 10.5 BSKFs. Like it was a low car. But I had that car set up with enough mechanical grip in the chassis that I could put it on the door of my teammate with his 500 horsepower LS in his S13 at monster truck ride height.
And I think people don't learn setup because they're they're adjusting their driving to make something work. There isn't like that happy balance. So you don't have somebody who's like, um, I'm not, I'm fucking shredding on all these dudes, or I am shredding, like I'm fucking gapping everybody at this event, but I cannot follow them for the life of me. Like they're not finding that happy medium. But I get it. It is a lot of work. People who don't know this, doing a setup on a car, it's fucking work. Like you're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah,
You're gonna make a change, and your car is gonna suck ass. I think people don't really kind of understand
yeah,
that, and that's a good thing because that means like go back to where you went and then make only one adjustment because you probably made three. And I
yeah,
think I can tell somebody to only make one adjustment at a time all day, but that doesn't mean that's what's gonna happen. I mean, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, I read the forums. I listened to fucking Chelsea Denofa. I listened to Adam LZ. I listened to fucking Travis Reeder. I can't, just pick your fucking favorite FD driver or drifter who YouTubes." Um, and they're like, "I listened to this, and this, and it didn't work." And then you kind of come into that problem where it's like, you listen to way too many people, like you're taking too much information in, um, and you're not utilizing it properly. Um, so that can
yeah,
be a big an issue with setup. I would say find one person who knows what they're talking about, and there's more than one way to. Sorry, I almost said there's more than one way to fuck a goat, which is a joke I heard before. It's not a good joke, but there's more than one way to do something. But I will say is find follow one person's direction, not 12 people's direction, because you'll be all over the place.
yeah,
Everyone has their own system.
yeah.
Um,
So what I ended up doing with that car was I played with setup for basically the first year that I was driving the car.
mm-hmm,
And I never really had a setup that I really liked.
mm-hmm,
And then the winter of 2021 into 2022, I got a lot of like private track time because I was volunteering with a stunt team that did stunt shows at the big drag racing events at
mm-hmm,
Mission Raceway. So we got lots of free track time as a trade off for that.
mm-hmm,
So what I would do is go out and just make an adjustment every time I had that track time.
mm-hmm.
And I got to the point where through that winter, I put the car into like a full kill mode for wet days,
Mm-hmm.
where the car was almost as fast as it would be in the dry in the rain.
Gotcha.
And then I never took the car back out of that mode. So after it stopped raining at the end of the winter and it started being sunny in the spring, I just learned how to drive that car in full kill mode all the time. And that's how I was able to run the doors of these guys with twice the power of me. Was I just had that car gripped up so much, even in second gear, I couldn't hit rev limiter in the dry because I was right on the edge of what that engine could spin for grip.
Um, were you allowed in clutch? Was that a lot of clutch work?
No,
Really?
no,
Okay. Is
no.
okay.
Yeah,
But you were able to keep up with anybody.
yeah.
You
No,
didn't bog
I
down. to the point where you
Nope.
were,
I wouldn't
straightening
bother.
up. Okay.
Nope. It was just enough that I could put a little bit of left foot brake input in without straightening out.
I want to. You know what? I think would be like a good discussion. Maybe we can kind of get into it if you have the right answer. I don't have the right one, so I'm saying this is knowing when to change something because it's not working. Um, like if you're bogging down, I know to clutch kick. It's a muscle memory thing, right? Um,
Yeah.
but sometimes clutch kicking isn't enough. And it's like, what do you do from that point? You can raise your tire pressure? Yes. You can change your shock settings to a bit stiffer situation. That's, if you have coilovers.
Yeah.
And I know some people are like, why would you be drifting without coilovers? That silver Cadillac, stock shocks.
I did 2 or 3 events in my Z with the car completely bone stock. All I did was weld the diff and put different wheels on it.
Yeah, I am pretty sure it worked fine. Um,
It worked great. I was leading 6 car trains with a bone stock 350Z.
you're fucking crazy. I wouldn't do that. um, uh, but it's like, what do we? Knowing that stuff, I want it. That's the information I want to give out. I just don't want to give out incorrect information. But I think what a lot of people don't understand is that if I give out some information or anybody gives out information, that is what's going to be right for their combination of them as a driver and the car that they have and whatever the car has,
That's the big thing is
whatever
a
settings
lot of
changes.
the setup differences are heavily chassis dependent.
Correct.
And also not just heavily chassis dependent, but heavily driver style dependent too.
Absolutely. And I think there's so
Because
much.
I had some friends try to drive my Z who I would consider to be better drivers than me, and they could not drive my car.
Yeah, and it makes total
They
sense.
just couldn't wrap their head around how I drove my car.
And I think that has some. I think what is not understood is the fact that the driver setup, and I mean, the driver itself and the car setup itself, those two work in conjunction together. Because I'm not going to
Yeah.
go do well in your car. At least I don't think I will, right? I don't know how you drive. I don't know how your car's set up and stuff like that. I think if I give my fucking alignment settings out, they are going to be helpful to so many people, but twice as many people are going to tell me how they're wrong.
Oh, if I told you the alignment specs that Z ended up with,
Mm,
you would question my fucking sanity.
maybe. But what I will say to add to that, my driver settings and my car setup might work well for me where I'm hitting the zones correctly. I'm in the zone before it starts on the proper line. I follow through all the way, exit, go to the next zone, interclip, whatever. That might work well for me in my setup. But let's just say you throw somebody else in the car who has it could be the same fucking car. It could be, but two different drivers. That would probably, it could put that person into a wall. I think that's what people don't
Yeah.
grasp. And so many people will shit on like a different setup. Like, why the fuck would you do it this way? Like, that's not how cars work. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's not how it works for you because of your driver. Like, your driver doesn't like that, or the driver is just he drives completely different. Where it's like someone might have more throttle input or earlier throttle input, so they expect certain things, or someone might have a later throttle input where they slow their car down a little bit more with like a handbrake or the brakes themselves. Um, so they're on throttle a little bit later. And I think those different, like those little nuances, like people can't really wrap their head around. Instead of saying like, oh, this guy drives different than me, and the setup's different, they're just like, you're wrong, as opposed to just
Yeah,
understanding the whole picture or the whole situation of how some like setup really works.
yeah, and alignment settings are okay to share for a baseline, but I feel like every driver is going to need to change their alignment settings to fit their own style.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody everybody sort of universally agrees a good baseline for alignment is like a eighth inch toe out in the front and uh, an eighth inch toe in the rear, kind of
Absolutely.
just total baseline. My Z was around a half inch toe out in the front, between half and three quarters of an inch toe out in the front,
Mm-hmm.
and almost an entire inch toe in the rear.
Yep, that makes sense.
Like,
It does. It makes sense because I've never. I'm sorry. I have heard of similar setups like that. So it makes sense that it's going to work for you. Like I know that Alex Hilbrum in the Monster BMW, the one
yeah,
that Rick built, I know that he used to run like an inch total of toe in on his E46. I don't know if anybody
yeah.
else is running that
That's
much.
that's the car. You know that Hilbrun car is the car that Nick Novak had until last year, right?
I don't know if it was the Monster one or if it was Brandon's car. That's what I don't know for sure. I know that there's like some because he had several. He had two or three, if I'm not mistaken.
So
He had his Pro 2 car.
as far as I'm aware, Brandon's car
Mm-hmm.
was an ESSA car,
So
Mike
okay.
ESSA car, and then Nick Novak had Hilbrun's car. The last car that Hilbrun drove in FD is the one that Nick Novak had, and he just reshelled it for this last season that just happened.
Did you watch that Lone Star thing?
Yeah,
Same. Okay. Okay. I keep up with like I
yeah.
try to keep up with FD stuff as much as I can. Because I'm a I am a product of American drifting. Um, so I do keep up with
Dude,
those.
I take in way too much information about drifting. Like I really
Really?
should spend my time researching other things, but man, I spend way too much time just researching drift stuff.
I wish I took in more. There's that. I think when I first got into it in like 2016 or 2015 is when I watched my first. I went to my first FD event, and then I immediately fell into the rat race of FD dream thing. That's gone. But I felt I fell into it super hard, and I pretty much kind of wanted to do anything that was related to FD. And I remember I was trying to mimic what the fucking pros were doing at the time. Um, I was whatever they were doing. I was trying to like make the same thing. If I got a sponsor, which I won't go into detail, but like a sponsor, what I thought was like somebody who gave me a deal on wheels, like 15% off. I treat it as a sponsor. I wouldn't do that today, obviously. Um, but I would be like so enthusiastic about it, like, oh, glad to work with my new fucking sponsor or something like that. Um, as opposed to now, and now I'm just like, I won't even talk about if you give me a percentage off, I'm not even gonna mention you. You might get a
Yeah,
sticker on the
the
car,
way
but
that
I'm
I
not gonna
see it
tag you.
now,
Yeah, good.
the way that I see it now, as far as that's concerned, is I don't really refer to anybody as a sponsor so much as a program partner,
Correct. That
depending on
same.
depending on how the level of support that they're giving my program.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't. The word sponsor has kind of just lost its meaning over the years because everybody and their dog likes to pretend that their 10% off discount is a sponsorship. So
But you
that's
learned the
why
hard
I've
way.
gone away from
Yeah.
yeah, I've just gone away from using the word sponsor as a whole and just referring to them as uh, program partners now.
And it makes a little bit more sense. I heard that.
Yep.
Um, I don't know where I was going with it, but I lost my train of thought. Um, where, when do you plan on coming back to drifting where you're in a seat again? I know you said maybe after some equity in the house, but do you have like a timeline of when you want to drive again?
Uh, I'd like to be able to drive at a grassroots level again in 2025. I think that's a
Realistic timeline.
feasible goal.
Okay.
I think that's a realistic timeline.
Okay, that's fair.
And I don't see myself being able to afford to compete in serious competition before probably 2028. Because I'm going to have to build a car before I can even think about it.
That's fair. How old are you?
So I'm 29.
God, fucking Christ, you make me feel old. Got it. Okay.
So back to what you were saying, because it got me thinking about when my first introduction to drifting was really. I went to Formula Drift Seattle in 2016 with my now wife, and the two of us just had an awesome day there. But I met Mad Mike that day, and
Mm-hmm.
man, Mad Mike is the coolest guy ever.
Is he? I've
Just
never met him.
oh, he was so cool, so down to earth. He was like encouraging me to climb into the passenger seat of his FD car
Oh,
and
nice.
stuff like that. I'm like, really? Yeah, it was wild. That was the year he was driving the MX-5.
I do remember that.
I think it was his last year
It
in
was.
FD USA.
Yeah, it was. It
Yeah,
was because 2017 is when James came and he wasn't there. I remember that.
yeah, that's right. Because yeah, he was like, I got talking to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you've never seen the inside of one of these?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Dude, climb in, like, take a good look."
Oh,
Like,
really?
really?
Nice. That's sweet, dude.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
I would hope
It
to.
what it was what sparked the conversation between me and him was I had a Toyota Caldina, which is a Japanese import. Um, Basically, what it is the Celica GT4, uh, like the rally car that Toyota got banned from the WRC for running.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Caldina is a Celica GT4 chassis with a wagon body on it instead of the coupe body.
Okay.
So 2-liter turbo all-wheel drive, the ST Celica chassis, but it has a wagon body on it.
Hang on.
And
Why do you keep saying Celica? It's Celica.
its pronunciation differences.
I know. I'm just fucking
So
with you. Go
anyway,
ahead. Go ahead.
um,
What's that all about? Go ahead.
but the big thing though is that Caldinas are really popular in Australia and New Zealand.
Okay. Oh, that's right. He's
So
from New Zealand. Yeah.
so when I drove into the FD pits, I just pretended like I was supposed to be there. I just drove straight into the pits in my car. And Mad Mike flagged me down and said, "Hey, I haven't seen one of these anywhere outside of Australia or New Zealand. This
Nice.
thing is rad." And that's what got us talking.
You know what's
Yeah,
crazy?
it was really cool.
I think Kyle Mohan said this, and it was a video that I saw. It was just a glimpse of it a long time ago. He goes, "We're all really just a fucking bunch of car guys. So if you bring it, just if we weren't doing this, we're still gonna have a shit ton of cars in our garage. We would be that neighbor
Yeah,
if they're not already." I think when it comes to like racing, it gets super expensive, so you don't have as many cars. But I know if I wasn't into racing, I'm pretty sure my driveway would be full with shit that I don't need. That's crazy. That
Yeah, I
for
mean my
someone
my
to
favorite
flag you
my
down,
favorite.
a pro driver
Yeah,
will. Yeah.
yeah. But no, I mean, like I get where you're coming from because like my favorite car outside of drifting is a 1965 GTO.
Really?
I really, really want a 65 GTO.
My dad built one a few years ago. Um, I think he built two of them, but they're not his cup of tea. His is the 64. He just I don't know if you saw my post, the orange-ish 64 he just built. It's not too far down on
No,
my
I haven't seen
page.
that
If you
one.
look on my page, you'll see it. My personal one. Um,
Okay.
my dad's a big GTO guy, but I'm a super big hot rod dude, hot rod guy or muscle car guy. I don't like drift
Yeah.
cars. I think I've said this recently before. I don't care for drift
Yeah.
cars. Give me a '60s muscle car. I'm on it, and don't give me no Fords because I'm not into them unless it's like a '65 Galaxy. It's like the only Ford I like. Um, but
My my mom has a 64 Galaxy 500 XL.
oh, that's the same. It's the same car. Um, yeah, they're
Yeah.
bitching. Um,
Yeah.
I've been in. This is what I grew up in. This is everything I know about cars came from like the '60s and '70s muscle car era, and then
Yeah.
drifting just fell in my lap when I was like 16. I was like, I love this.
Well, I I was basically born and raised in Corvairs because my dad has owned
Those
I
don't
think
count.
27 or 28 Corvairs over the years,
Uh huh.
and I basically learned how to drive manual in a Corvair.
Nice. Mine was the S10.
Yeah. I
Um.
mean, technically, it was my Nissan pickup truck,
Uh huh.
but like as soon as I had half a handle on that pickup truck, my dad was like, "All right, you're learning in the Corvair now." So
Thank you for what it
yeah,
is.
I basically daily drove a '63 Corvair turbo convertible for one summer, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, yeah, I think it was the summer of 2015. I basically daily drove a '63 Corvair.
Nice. I'm not
Yeah,
super into the Corvairs themselves. Um, I really the cars
I
I
like them for one simple fact
what is
is that you can drive them at 10 tenths and never break the speed limit.
that's I get it.
Like
I
you
get
can
it.
go around
That's
corners fully pinned in those cars, and you're not breaking the speed limit, and you're not at risk of crashing.
I've never driven one. I've seen them. Uh, maybe with you saying that, I might want to try. They sound like they're like the Miata of the '60s.
Yeah,
The
but
American
the
Miata.
opposite because all the weight's behind you.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then
Yeah,
like the
so
cars,
it's they really are like a poor man's Porsche.
I could see that. That makes sense. The cars I like
Yeah,
are so I like big cars. Like I do like the GTO. It's cool. The car I really like is the 64 and 65 Skylark, the 67 Chevelle, just because the way the taillights look on the 67 Chevelle. And then the biggest car I'm trying to get, and it's the car I want back. It's the first car I wouldn't say I built it, that I helped my dad build, was a 64 Oldsmobile Cutlass. When I was 15, he basically made me stay in the garage and help him. Um, that car, I know where it's at. I'm just waiting for this old man to die and be like, hey, it's for sale. And then I got to come up with like probably 35 grand. Um, but those are the old cars I like. If I'm going to build something from the ground up by myself, it's probably going to be like a G body Malibu. So like a 78 to 82 Malibu wagon.
yeah.
But the shitty part is I live in
I've got a
California. So
I've got a good friend that does did lots of G bodies
did I say
over the
Malibu
years.
wagon?
Yeah, you did.
Ignore me. Coupe. I don't like the wagon.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's there. But you were saying the G bodies. Your buddy did G bodies.
Yeah, so I think he still has a Monte Carlo,
Mm-hmm.
um, but he had a number of different G bodies, Malibus, Cutlasses, like all of them,
Yeah.
over the years, and but now he's moved on. Now he's got a C4 Corvette that he's LS swapped, and that's kind of
Nice.
his toy at the moment. Yeah.
I think Rudy Hansen burned down a C4 Corvette at Grange or AVS during the first drift week.
Yeah.
I wonder
Yeah,
if
I
he
remember
has
that.
that
That
car
was
still. I'm
brutal.
gonna have to get him back on and ask him. I know he got it from like his dad or something like that.
No, it was Shelly's dad.
No, it gets
It was
worse.
Shelly's
The
car.
story gets worse.
It was Shelly's car. Yeah.
No. Okay, I gotta get Shelly on.
Yeah.
I gotta get Shelly on. Dude, I got at the hot pit banquet party. I got so fucked up. Like I got so drunk that I had to do sober October to like be like reevaluate my life. Anyways, I was so trash talking to Shelly and Rudy. I was like, oh, what was I saying? I was saying something about like, oh, you beat him. You should just fucking um, protest for your license. And I was talking to both of them, and I was like, you should just protest for your license. I was like, you beat him. I'm pretty sure. I don't see why they wouldn't say no. I was like, and he just came in second place. If you can beat that guy, you can beat any of them.
Yeah.
But I was fucking trashed, and I kept saying it
Third.
over and over.
Rudy finished third.
Did he get third?
Ben won, and then Andy Haitley was second.
I thought he got second for some reason. Okay. Well, either way,
No.
same difference.
But yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I got super drunk there and made a fool of myself, and then I saw them in Vegas at SEMA. They're like, Gerald. I was like, oh hey, let's not remember what I said to you guys last time. But they were nice. But
Yeah.
I'll get them back on soon too, or at least Shelly. Rudy's had his 5 minutes of fame on my shit show. I think I'm gonna call it there, man. We're almost at 3 hours, and
Yeah.
even though we took like a
Well,
15-minute break at
yeah,
some point.
I think there will be a little bit of editing involved. But
Oh, don't worry. I marked all the clips. This is the great thing about this little app is I can just hit mark clip and it'll tell me exactly where like I got up and left and shit. But where can people
perfect.
follow you and follow your little journey that you got going on? And then you're going to be doing judging again next year, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
So as long as I don't go into financial ruin before next season comes around and have to leave the province very quickly, then I will be judging the full season at Evergreen again.
Okay.
And if I can swing it financially, I'll be judging the full season for Spec D as well. If I can't swing it financially, I'll be at the mission event for Spec D.
Nice.
So
Okay.
we'll see what happens. So
And how can people
yeah,
follow you?
at Mitchell McGarvey on Instagram. It's just my name,
Gotcha.
and yeah, I changed the handle after our last one because it was way too complicated.
It was. But all right, man. Thank you for coming
Yeah.
on again.
All
We
right.
will chit chat soon, boss. You have a good night.
Yeah,
Take it
you
easy.
too.
All right.